up? Welcome to another edition of Fox 5 Live on this Thursday, May 25th, as we go into Memorial Day weekend. Getting excited, right, Cam?
Yeah, long weekend. Always gotta like those.
Yeah, we're excited. So this is intern Cam. I want to make sure I introduce you guys. He'll be joining me here in our little digital newsroom here for the next few months, actually. So we'll have him to comment, and you guys can always send your questions along and chat along with us on the live chat. A lot of cool stuff coming up for you today. We have a lot of live events going on overseas. As you guys probably know, President Trump is over on his first foreign trip, so that is going on, and he's still in Brussels. Today, he's at NATO headquarters. Let me give you a shot of that right now. We're getting this live picture in from NATO headquarters. He's there meeting with leaders, and he spoke just briefly earlier. I'm going to bring the sound up here. It's just a little bit of natural sound, no speaking right now, but I believe he will be speaking a little bit later, and we'll be back with more of the details on that for you. But Cam, you heard him speak earlier. He was saying something about...
Yeah, he had a brief call to the other NATO leaders. Basically, a lot of the focus of this meeting is about that defense, agreement between all the members of NATO. The agreement that if one member of NATO gets attacked, then all the other members come to their aid. So,
yep.
And there's been some questions in the Trump campaign and through the beginning of his presidency as to whether or not he would actually follow that agreement, and whether or not he would, he would actually put American lives on the line if another member of NATO was attacked. And so a lot of this meeting speaks to that. And he said earlier that 23 of the 28 members of NATO have not been meeting their agreements so far, and their contribution agreements as well.
23 of the 28.
23 of the 28 nations.
Yes.
So we've yet to see much more from that, and I don't believe he's actually spoken to the other leaders directly, or their more joint press conference or joint meeting yet. But he was addressing some media out in front of the venue, and
right.
said something to that extent.
And just before we came in here, before we put the show up, I think he said a few brief words to the camera, right? He was publicly speaking.
Yeah.
So we didn't catch that on cam live, but look, you're looking now at live picture of, there he is, President Trump with the blue tie at headquarters with the other NATO leaders.
Yes.
And he'll be attending a ceremony. I believe either this is still part of that ceremony or this is it right here. We'll listen in to this in just a second if we have it. There'll also be a flag raising and a military flyover at this headquarters here. There's Angela Merkel. Earlier this morning, former President Obama was actually at sort of I guess stage roundtable, whatever event discussion. This is actually, did you guys know, it's the anniversary of the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. So Angela Merkel was speaking with President Obama early this morning. We have some video of that for later, but he was there to discuss democracy, global responsibility there during this anniversary, and she was headlining that as well. So we'll bring you some video of that from earlier. It all happened about 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So if we bring that to you, it was happening live over there while we were basically waking up over here. So we have that video for you guys. There's a gorgeous shot of the headquarters. Let's bring the sound up for this ceremony and let you listen in. This is what President Trump is up to right now over at NATO headquarters.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of His Majesty, the King of the Belgians and the Secretary General of NATO. Military personnel are kindly requested to salute during the playing of Au Chant and the national anthem of the Kingdom of Belgium. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Votre Majesté, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, la cérémonie va commencer. Les porte-drapeaux des 28 pays de l'Alliance vont prendre place au pied des mâts.
You guys are watching this ceremony live in Brussels, Belgium. This is NATO headquarters. Look at that gorgeous shot with the glass building and the sun is shining. It looks like a beautiful day over there. We're going to hear from the Belgian Prime Minister as well as the Secretary General in sort of this ceremonial event here. It's called the handover ceremony in Brussels. And we're jumping into it live. It's happening right now, right across the pond here. Rainy here in DC, but looks beautiful there. Check out this ceremonious event. We'll jump back in with you guys shortly.
His Excellency, Mr. Charles Michel, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Belgium, and the Secretary General will now deliver their remarks.
Your Majesty, dear Secretary General, dear colleagues, men and women of the armed forces, welcome. Belgium welcomes you at this beautiful site at the heart of our country. A new home that confirms resolve and determination, because we know that action and symbols are important in today's world. Now, more than ever, after the loss of so many lives in Manchester, we need to stay ahead of a threat that kills a girl of 8 years old at a concert hall. Our presence today expresses unity in times of uncertainty. After the attack in the United Kingdom, we are all wounded deeply, but we see strong commitment, not only in words, but also in deeds. We all agree that we must continue to change in order to keep our people safe. Our citizens need security first, but we can only succeed if we work together. Today, 29 leaders of the free world reaffirm their wish to strive for peace and stability. And it is our responsibility to uphold this promise. A stronger European Union makes NATO stronger, and a stronger NATO makes the US and Canada safer too. We are all in this together. Security today requires much more than the traditional military tools. Civilian and military operations go hand in hand, so we need soft and hard power. Just as the US stood with Europe once, Europe stood with the US. The only time that NATO invoked the collective defense was after 9/11. This was more than just a symbol. Thousands of NATO soldiers have served in Afghanistan, and many men and women have paid the ultimate price. Today, we will address transatlantic solidarity and the fight against terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, our alliance has been solid for almost 70 years. And these new headquarters are the symbol we need, because I believe NATO can and will continue to make a difference. This is not so naive, but the reality we all live in. By opening this new site, we renew our pledge. And my country, Belgium, is very proud of this great new home. The building is designed to resemble interlocking fingers, another symbol of our common goals since World War II. When we started building, we found explosives buried deep into the soil. This site was bombed 7 decades ago by English and German troops, and now it stands for common goals and cooperation. Congratulations to all who made this headquarters possible. Ladies and gentlemen, let's show people around the world that by joining hands we provide safety and freedom. We believe in this because the values of NATO, our common values, are not obsolete. Freedom, peace, security, human rights, democracy, the rule of law will always prevail. This is at the heart of our mission. A special word of thanks to the men and women of the armed forces who put their lives at risk for a higher cause. Your bravery and courage is an example to us all. On behalf of you, it is my privilege to hand over this headquarters to NATO. May this home be a home to us all. I thank you.
You guys are watching footage of this live event at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. You heard a little bit of an echo there on his mic that's unfortunately on their end, sort of echoing, I think, in this area with this glass building surrounding it. But you can see it's this open area here with the leaders speaking. We'll hear from the Prime Minister of Belgium as well. President Trump did speak as well to the rest of the leaders earlier. Cam, you were noting that.
Yeah,
Thank you, Prime Minister.
A lot of what I was talking about before about stepping up to the commitment, the monetary and their pledge and their commitment to the NATO agreement.
Right, to the NATO agreement. For example, in specifics for the countries to devote at least 2% of their GDP to defense. President Trump was mentioning some of that and how lots of countries have not stepped up to that number, have not fulfilled that as part of their duty. So that's what he spoke about just briefly before we took this feed live. And now we're jumping in here. We'll also hear from President Trump a little bit later as well, as long as it stays on schedule. That's what we're slated to hear from him around 11:45 from this event here, this ceremony at the headquarters. All right, we'll bring the sound back up for you guys.
Nation Belgium, the thousands of people from across the lines who have contributed to this project, and those who are working to ensure a smooth transition already underway from our old home across the road. This headquarters will be an emblem of a strong, adaptable alliance. It will provide state-of-the-art facilities. It is a greener building helping us to work in new ways. This is a 21st century headquarters for a 21st century alliance. NATO was founded almost 70 years ago to keep our nation safe during the Cold War. But we have constantly adapted as security challenges have evolved. When the Berlin Wall came down, the world changed. And this alliance changed too. Former adversaries became partners and then allies. And for the first time, we went beyond our own borders to help end ethnic wars in the Western Balkans. Then terrorists struck on 9/11. And the world changed again. And so did we. We launched our biggest combat operation ever to fight terrorism in Afghanistan. In 2014, we saw the rise of a new barbaric breed of terrorism. And the national-based rules-based order was violated when the borders were changed by military force in Ukraine. Once again, NATO responded with the largest reinforcement of our collective defense in the generation. Not because we seek to provoke conflict, but because we want to prevent conflict and to preserve the peace. That is why we also remain committed to dialogue. Meanwhile, we have stepped up our role in the fight against terrorism. We have been on the front line of that fight many years, and we continue partners in Afghanistan, Iraq, and elsewhere to build up their forces and stabilize their countries. As NATO has adapted to an uncertain world, there has always been one constant: our unity. Throughout our history, we have stood together. And the barbaric attack in Manchester shows how important it is that we continue to stand together in defense of our open societies. So today we will decide what more we should do to keep our allies safe in a more dangerous world. 28 allies, soon to be 29, as we prepare for Montenegro's accession as NATO's newest member. And it is therefore a great honor for me to welcome today Prime Minister Markovic of Montenegro to our Euro-Atlantic family. Dobro došla, Crna Gora. Welcome. NATO is more.
You guys are just checking in with us. Thanks for joining us on Fox 5 Live. We're Washington, D.C.'s digital newsroom here, bringing you this live event happening over at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. Now, President Trump spoke for about 8 minutes or so right before you're hearing these speeches live. So I wanted to make sure I brought this to you live. There's President Trump himself on this sunny day at NATO headquarters, and he spoke. Let's see, what were we talking about that he was speaking about?
Speaking about the group, the NATO's, all the individual members' commitment to the treaty and to the agreement itself, that would, that basically the mutual defense agreement that outlines how all the members would come to each other's aid in an event that any of them are attacked. And in his kind of opinion is that many of the nations have not been living up to that promise, and they're not dedicating enough of their budget, which the standing agreement is 2% of the GDP each year, to defense. And in the figures that he mentioned was that there'd be almost 200 billion more euros actually in the available basically if all the countries had been living up to this over the last couple of years. So
interesting stuff. Yeah, so we're going to flash it back to his words later. We have video of that. We missed it right before we went on air here, but check out this cool ceremonial part now.
Flag up!
The NATO flag will now be raised while the NATO hymn is played.
For the raising of the NATO flag, inner circle, right, turn, left, right, face, take flag, release flag. Flag up!
There will now be a flypast of aircraft from Belgium, the United States, Italy, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Czech Republic, France, and the Netherlands, including F-16s, Gripens, Eurofighter Typhoons, A400Ms, Rafale, and AWACS, and the flypast will end with Belgian and French Alpha jets.
Are watching live coverage here on Fox 5 Live of the NATO headquarters flyover, part of this ceremony that President Trump is in attendance for. This is live. He's there at headquarters, and he already made his remarks about 8 minutes long. Earlier. We're going to bring that video to you later on Fox 5 Live on our YouTube stream. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome as well. You just saw a flyover with various countries represented, including Belgium, the Czech Republic, the United States had some planes in there.
Netherlands, France, Italy. I don't have the whole list. But.
Exactly. And you can see actually the NATO flag in the center there is flying half staff there in solidarity, I believe, with Manchester. Or we're not sure if that's the case, but we saw that it was flying at half staff around with the other NATO countries surrounding it. So let's listen into the end of this ceremony here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please remain in place for the departure of His Majesty the King of the Belgians. Military personnel are kindly requested to salute during the playing of Chant and the national anthem of the Kingdom of Belgium.
Hand, salute! Hands at ease! Stand at ease!
This concludes the handover ceremony. Participants in the meeting at the level of heads of state and or government are invited to proceed to room 14 in the conference center. Thank you. And actually having the Belgian...
So guys, that concludes the handover ceremony here. They're in Brussels. This is live footage right now that you're getting from over there. We can listen into some of this music, but we hope that you caught some of that flyover. I know we joined in a little bit late there as part of the ceremony, but we were just trying to get it out to you. You can join us over on our YouTube stream. If you're watching already on Facebook, jump on over to YouTube, Fox 5 DC, and we have our Fox 5 Live show going on all through the afternoon. I'm Molly, and this is intern Cam, hanging out with you guys, filling you in. We found out, turns out the NATO flag in the center has been raised all the way, so it wasn't actually lingering at half-staff. We were questioning if that was in memorial of the Manchester tragedy, but that was not the case. So now we see the NATO leaders exiting. President Trump will be off to a working lunch or a luncheon of sorts with some of the NATO leaders next, and we'll see if we get some of that video as well. So again, jump on over to our show on YouTube, and we'll try to catch that live lunch and any other live events that we have that come up during the day. We'll leave it here as long as we have this footage of this gorgeous day in Brussels. This is NATO headquarters. So if you've never seen sort of what that looks like, this is a special ceremony that happens here. And the leaders all in attendance. President Trump did speak earlier, and we're going to bring that to you guys on our show later on over on the YouTube channel. So, yeah,
I believe that's what you're doing. You're
yeah, exactly.
I don't know all the details on that, but it looks they obviously it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Helping its case in that regard. So,
and how gorgeous that glass building. So you can see the leaders here filing out. They also mentioned there's 28 countries in NATO. There's a 29th soon to be. That 29th country is Montenegro. So we were kind of efforting that information because we heard him mention soon to be 29 nations, and that will be the 29th country to join. So just a little fact for you guys here. If you're watching on Facebook, thanks for jumping in with us here on our feed. But once again, we encourage you to switch over to YouTube, where our Fox 5 Live show is happening now. It's live, goes through the afternoon. All the live events that you want covered, we'll have it for you guys. All right, thanks for checking in, Facebook, and thanks for commenting below on your thoughts. We'll bring you some more breaking news as we have it. I don't know about you, Cam, but I think I liked that shot a little too much. That architecture. The building is just so gorgeous. I was telling Cam, I was like, I want to be inside that building to Instagram that gorgeous shot of that architecture, that new building. You can see there's the outside of it right there. Mm-hmm. This is live at NATO headquarters in Brussels. Guys, we're going to just shortly here jump down from this Facebook feed, but we encourage you to join us over on our YouTube channel, Fox 5 Live. We're at Fox 5 DC. Look us up on YouTube, and we are here. It's myself, Molly, and intern Cam over here in the digital newsroom, bringing you the live news and events. We're going to leave you here with this gorgeous shot of outside NATO headquarters. Okay, guys, so we're back in the newsroom here, Molly and Cam. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for checking in with us. We just pulled you out of that shot that is still steady on the outside of NATO headquarters. Gorgeous glass building, gorgeous new building. That architecture is just stunning. And we were talking for a long time about President Trump and his speech right before we cut into this event. We weren't able to get him up live, but he did make some remarks, and people are now talking about it. It's sort of a frenzy in the media now, just what he had to say to the other NATO leaders. So we're going to go there to hear his remarks and check in with that. So I'm going to bring up this clip here. They're not too long, but we'll play this back for you. This is what President Trump had to say at NATO headquarters.
Secretary General Stoltenberg, Chancellor Merkel, thank you very much. Other heads of state and government, I'm honored to be here with members of an alliance that has promoted safety and peace across the world. Prime Minister May, all of the nations here today grieve with you and stand with you. I would like to ask that we now observe a moment of silence for the victims and families of the savage attack which took place in Manchester. Thank you. Terrible thing. This ceremony is a day for both remembrance and resolve. We remember and mourn those nearly 3,000 innocent people who were brutally murdered by terrorists on September 11th, 2001. Our NATO allies responded swiftly and decisively, invoking for the first time in its history the Article 5 collective defense commitments. The recent attack on Manchester in the United Kingdom demonstrates the depths of the evil we face with terrorism. Innocent little girls and so many others were horribly murdered and badly injured while attending a concert, beautiful lives with so much great potential, torn from their families forever and ever. It was a barbaric and vicious attack upon our civilization. All people who cherish life must unite in finding, exposing, and removing these killers and extremists. And yes, losers. They are losers. Wherever they exist in our societies, we must drive them out and never, ever let them back in. This call for driving out terrorism is a message I took to a historic gathering of Arab and Muslim leaders across the region, hosted by Saudi Arabia. There I spent much time with King Solomon, a wise man who wants to see things get much better rapidly. The leaders of the Middle East have agreed at this unprecedented meeting to stop funding the radical ideology that leads to this horrible terrorism all over the globe. My travels and meetings have given me renewed hope that nations of many faiths can unite to defeat terrorism, a common threat to all of humanity. Terrorism must be stopped in its tracks, or the horror you saw in Manchester and so many other places will continue forever. You have thousands and thousands of people pouring into our various countries and spreading throughout. And in many cases, we have no idea who they are. We must be tough, we must be strong, and we must be vigilant. The NATO of the future must include a great focus on terrorism and immigration, as well as threats from Russia and on NATO's eastern and southern borders. These grave security concerns are the same reason that I have been very, very direct with Secretary Stoltenberg and members of the alliance in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. But 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States. And many of these nations massive amounts of money from past years and not paying in those past years. Over the last 8 years, the United States spent more on defense than all other NATO countries combined. If all NATO members had spent just 2% of their GDP on defense last year, we would have had another $119 billion for our collective defense and for the financing of additional NATO reserves. We should recognize that with these chronic underpayments and growing threats, even 2% of GDP is insufficient to close the gaps in modernizing, readiness, and the size of forces. We have to make up for the many years lost. 2% is the bare minimum for confronting today's very real and very vicious threats. If NATO countries made their full and complete contributions, then NATO would be even stronger than it is today, especially from the threat of terrorism. I want to extend my appreciation to the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in New York for contributing this remnant of the North Tower, as well as to Chancellor Merkel and the German people for donating this portion of the Berlin Wall. It is truly fitting that these two artifacts now reside here so close together at the new NATO headquarters. And I never asked once what the new NATO headquarters cost. I refuse to do that. But it is beautiful. Each one marks a pivotal event in the history of this alliance and in the eternal battle between good and evil. On one side, a testament to the triumph of our ideals over a totalitarian communist ideology bent on the oppression of millions and millions of people. On the other, a painful reminder of the barbaric evil that still exists in the world and that we must confront and defeat together as a group, as a world. This twisted mass of metal reminds us not only of what we have lost, but also what forever endures, the courage of our people, the strength of our resolve, and the commitments that bind us together as one. We will never forget the lives that were lost. We will never forsake the friends who stood by our side. And we will never waver in our determination to defeat terrorism and to achieve lasting security, prosperity, and peace. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that was President Trump just moments ago, his remarks to NATO. We had that. We cut into the ceremony a little late when we went up at 11 o'clock, and Trump had already spoken. So I wanted to make sure we brought that small video to you, his speech to NATO. And he said a lot of things that we expected. There was a big moment of silence for Manchester. He referenced the Manchester attackers, once again, calling them losers, as he's been doing in the news. And Cam, you had an interesting insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that's one thing that, regardless of your actual position on Trump as president, that's one thing that you can't get behind. I mean, the losers is not a word you hear a lot in regard to terrorism, but I think that that's in many ways one of the most appropriate words. I mean, in many, being a loser, you are literally inferior. And I think that that's, the way that we should think about terrorism and about terrorists. Those acts there, that those atrocities really are inferior.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way. I hadn't actually thought of it that way, and Cam brought that up, and I was like, that's interesting to think about. So he sort of had that moment, of course, in solidarity with Manchester, and then went into what we had also prefaced before about countries, urging countries to spend the required 2% of GDP on defense, and he went into a little bit of that. So not a super long speech or not too convoluted, but President Trump's words there to the leaders of NATO. Okay, we're going to totally switch gears and look at this other cool story that we just wrote up here in our newsroom, and a bunch of other stations, our sister stations, shared it. Totally different gears, guys. Check this out. Sextuplets born to a woman in Richmond. This is so cool. A Virginia hospital and its staff successfully delivered sextuplets. 3 boys, 3 girls. Crazy. They all ranged from, this is the stats, 1 pound, 10 ounces to 2 pounds, I think 3 ounces or so. And there's 3 boys, 3 girls there. The woman is of Nigerian descent. Apparently she and her husband were trying for many, many years to conceive. And this is the staggering thing. This is what is crazy to me. It was an effort of 40 people in that hospital.
That's unbelievable. How do you even get that many in a room?
I know. 40 people pre-planned this birth. It was by cesarean section, and we're listening to our box. Got a lot of Capitol Hill events today that we're going to bring to you live as well in the newsroom. But this story really stood out to me. I thought it was a cool one, very cute. Like I said, they ranged in weight, but obviously only as much up to what that woman can grow inside of her. Yeah. But local hospital in Richmond delivered, like I said, a 40-person team delivered these babies on May 11th, so just a little bit earlier in May.
And now they're all thriving, according to the story. So that's
that's what we're reading. Always good news. And sextuplets are very rare. The stats on that I'm reading here are, of the 4 million live births in the U.S. in 2015, 24 of them were quintuplets or other higher order births. So that's really rare.
Yeah. That's
a lot of births, and that's a really low number. So I thought that was a cool story.
Talk about changing your family dynamic.
Yeah, that's a lot. Especially when you're trying to have kids and then you have 6.
All of a sudden you have 6.
I know.
That's
great find.
That's quite a jump.
That's a great story. Okay, and then if we totally switch gears again, President Trump is at this luncheon now. We're going to see if we can dip in here. We're getting some footage in from NATO. Let's take a listen and take a look. Looks like this is NATO headquarters again. We're waiting for, I guess they're all gathering together. This is the luncheon. Here it is. Here's you the setup.
Filing in now.
Yep, this is a working dinner, actually, because we have to think about it. They're ahead of us. Obviously, it's dinner time. And the opening remarks will be by Secretary General Stoltenberg.
I think third name tag down the road there was Montenegro. We just talked about
the country, right?
So,
cool, good eyesight there. You saw that. I didn't catch it. If you guys are watching along with us on YouTube, don't feel free to check in with us and comment. We want to hear your questions and comments as well as we jump around to different live events. So that looks like they're all filing in for this dinner. We'll hear some opening remarks, and then we'll probably jump over stateside to Capitol Hill to see what's going on there. Lots of stuff happening today, even while the president's away. Lots of people speaking, and as usual, just a busy day in D.C. We'll have some other stories for you shortly, but take a look at this. NATO headquarters live in Brussels. We're getting this feed in right now as we're speaking. Yeah, we'll check in with you guys shortly. If you guys are just joining us, thanks for sticking with us here on our YouTube stream. You're watching what is live inside the NATO headquarters in Brussels, Belgium, and leaders there are gathering, getting ready for a working dinner. That's what they're calling it. All the NATO leaders. There's Angela Merkel and others we've seen as well. I saw Justin Trudeau in the background there, and I haven't seen President Trump, although maybe he walked in and I missed it. But he is there as well, and so we'll just be kind of listening in to this dinner to see what they have to say. There's some opening remarks from the Secretary General Stoltenberg that should be coming up shortly. So we're going to just hang on here and get this in live. It's Molly here in the newsroom with intern Cam checking in.
Yeah.
And we're happy to be here with you guys. So let us know where you're watching from. Chat with us in the box, and don't forget to click subscribe on our channel so you can see whenever we come up on our midday live show for you. We have other stories in store for you, and we're just going to be checking around around town, around the world, around the nation to see what comes in on our feeds today. So for now, we'll stick with Brussels and hear these opening remarks at least, and then probably roll out into some other stories. Looks like it's clearing up in the district here. I can just flash you this shot of the Capitol building. Some blue skies there on a sunnier
finally
day.
It's been like what, 4 days since we've actually seen the sun.
I know. That's what it looks like in DC. So that's where we are in our nation's capital, in our digital newsroom here at Fox 5 DC, and we're gonna flash you back to live in Brussels. Let's do it. We're going to wait around for these opening remarks and check back in with you. So don't forget to comment and chat with us. We'll answer some of your questions and see what else is going on today on the show. Thanks for watching this.
Historic moment. We face the most difficult security challenges for a generation. Terrorism and instability, a more assertive Russia, the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and the growing threat of cyber attacks. The bond between NATO allies has kept our people safe since the alliance was founded almost 70 years ago. We are here today to strengthen that bond. We will take decisions to share more fairly the burden of our security and to do more in the fight against terrorism. We are an alliance of democracies, nations from both sides of the Atlantic, with different history, different geography, different culture, and at times also different political perspectives. And yet we rise above those differences and unite around a common purpose. We protect each other, we stand together, we are NATO. I will now invite Prime Minister Charles Michel to say a few words. Belgium has generously hosted our alliance for 50 years and has provided invaluable support for this meeting. So thank you, Charles, and now you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, this new building in the heart of Europe is a great achievement. Brussels and Belgium are the core of multilateralism, with more diplomats than anywhere else in the world. So I am proud to be here with you. Dear Angela, the unveiling of a segment of the Berlin Wall was a very powerful moment. I was 14 years old when the wall came down. I remember watching the news and realizing that this was a defining moment in history. I believe that these events have shaped the rest of Europe and marked many generations. I also want to express a word of thanks to the United States. We know your country suffered greatly on 9/11, so the landmark of the US will be a constant reminder to us all. Freedom over oppression. That is what the Berlin Wall shows us. Solidarity and freedom. That is what 9/11 has taught us. I know we all have the best interest of our alliance at heart. NATO needed this new home more than ever, not just to show that we are adapting to new times, but just so that many thousands of people can continue to cooperate daily. One last word for the Secretary General. Your faith and firm belief of NATO's values is key to the success of our alliance. Thank you for your commitment, Jens. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. And that ends the public part of this meeting. So may I then ask the media to leave? Thank you for your cooperation. And then.
So at this point, the press has to leave, we just heard. So we get flashback to the outside of the building there, that gorgeous glass building that I'm obsessed with. And I was telling Cam, I was like, it would be it's so cool. It's such an honor honestly, for President Trump to experience this. I mean, he's so new to politics anyway, and now he gets to, unite with all these world leaders. What an incredible experience.
Yeah, that right there is 29 of the most powerful people in the world. So
exactly.
Hard to get that much more, that much higher of a concentration of power in one room than you got right there. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh, and we lost the feed. We're going to come back to the Capitol Dome here in Washington. I'm actually watching right now. We have another feed coming in. What? Oh, the volume. Yeah, we got it. I didn't want to hear those bars. We'll bring it back in. I'll bring it back to my cam here in the newsroom. We have, I see Tim Kaine up at the podium talking, and I want to bring you over there before we lose it. Just as we get live stuff in, we want to bring it to you. So right now in Capitol Hill, we have some, Senate Democrats are speaking about healthcare. That's a hot topic today. Nope, actually, I'm wrong. They're speaking about, Senator Flake and Kaine are speaking about military force against ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban. All seemingly very relevant, of course, in today's world with the events of Manchester and the imminent threat level that Britain is going through right now. So it's all very relevant. Let's go over to Tim Kaine, see what he has to say. He's on Capitol Hill here. Here's a live look.
The way this is a little bit different than the earlier versions. The version that Jeff and I worked on in June of 2015 was ISIS specific. And we learned some things from talking to our colleagues and going back and forth. What we realized, I frankly think this is partly hard because people don't want to cast a war vote, because there's going to be a consequence. So it should be the gravest vote we ever cast. People want to duck from that if they can. There is another reason that it's hard, though, to be fair. A lot of our thoughts and doctrines about war really are doctrines where we think about state v. state. And so a lot of Geneva Conventions and, a whole lot of rules are state v. state rules. It is a reality, and it's not going to not be a reality anytime soon, that a lot of our military posture now is driven by non-states. And that's going to be the case for a while. So we really have drafted this as more of a template bill for use of military force against non-state actors. Not a particular, just the 9/11 attack, but these three non-states. And we've crafted it a little bit differently than some authorizations in the past to recognize that. Last thing I'll tell you, why do I have hope? When I elected the Richmond City Council in 1994, I was passionate about this wonky issue. Why do we have city elections in May when the turnout's 15%? We should have them in November and we'll get a good turnout. And I introduced a bill to do it, and I lost. Then I introduced a bill to do it 3 years later, and I lost. I got it done. It took me 7 years. I got it done, and now we have November elections. We have big turnout. So I don't give up easy.
How many years have you been trying to?
Well, we introduced in 2014. Before, so this is the second time.
Before then, haven't you?
I was obsessed about this before I got here, but no, not. Senator McCain and I have introduced a bill going way back to 2013 to rewrite the War Powers Act. But the first effort to do this came when President Obama decided to, and these are his words, go on offense against ISIS in late August of 2014. And I introduced a bill in September after he spoke to the nation about the ISIS mission.
Two questions, if I may. First, General Mattis has expressed general support for something like this, but as you know, President Trump doesn't always follow the sentiments of his cabinet officials. So I'm wondering what indicates to you that President Trump would be amenable to going through and supporting and maybe just not actively opposing an AUMF, such as the one you are proposing. And then the second question, Senator Flake, because you brought it up at the beginning, what do either of you think about the alleged assault on a reporter from the Montana congressional candidate?
With regard to why the president might move forward, I do believe that he listens to Secretary Mattis, and I do think that any president would want to have Congress behind them. It strengthens their hand as they negotiate, as they exercise diplomacy, and as they want to deal with our adversaries. Our adversaries need to know, and also we can't overstate the importance of the war fighters out there. They need to know, and I think the president, if he wants to stand with them, he'd want the Congress to be with the administration, not be able to hide behind an old AUMF or not take a vote. I think we've had turnover. More than half of the Congress is new since our last AUMF was passed. And it's time for us to weigh in and set up a structure where we continually are involved. With regard to the reporter, I don't think there's ever any excuse to throw down a reporter. So I'm not sure exactly what happened. As much as we've all thought about it from time to time, I don't think we'll go there.
Yeah, that was a really sad event. Should never happen. We should be able to do our jobs and do them well and keep an even keel emotionally and let the First Amendment live and breathe and let reporters do their jobs. With respect to President Trump, I do think that both he as a candidate and Hillary Clinton as a candidate said Congress should do their job here. Congress needs to get back into the game on this. And it's not just General Mattis. I think General McMaster in the past has spoken about this. And I'll never forget an Armed Services hearing where I asked General Dunford, who President Trump just reappointed to be head of the Joint Chiefs, about this issue. And I can remember this almost as if it's an exact quote. Would it be helpful if we had a new AUMF dealing with ISIS? And he said, what our young men and women need, and it's virtually all that they need, is the belief that what they're doing has meaning, has value, and has the support of the American people. And how do you show that support of the American people? You do it through a vote by the people's elected representatives. And that was a very powerful bit of testimony that I've never forgotten. And so I think that national security team generally believes that this effort would be helpful. Now we have to dialogue with them about, do they see language issues, et cetera, but I think they feel like congressional support will be helpful.
Thank you. One more, Hannah.
These groups are constantly morphing and evolving. Why limit it to just the three groups? Why limit the AUMF?
Our thought in the draftsmanship on this was, if you have the three that we're currently engaged in, and then you set up kind of a definition for who an associated force would be, all you have to do is show two things: that they're connected to the three, and that they have hostile intent against the United States. And what the president can do is just send over a list. Here's a new group. And that just sending it over gives the president the ability to take action. We can disapprove. Now, that's a high standard to pass a resolution of disapproval. But the president, just by listing a new group, can do it. Because you're right. Naming the groups, they change. Even the same group changes their name, or they have a splinter, and then they're allies, and then they're enemies, and then they're allies again. But the three groups, ISIS, Taliban, and AQ, have connections to one another. If some non-state group pops up in another part of the world with no connection to these, and wants to do something in South America, if the Sinaloa cartel, suddenly starts to use military action to promote drug trade or human trafficking, we ought to have a debate about that's separate from this, because they wouldn't have a connection to these groups. But if they have a connection and they mean hostile intent to the U.S., then the president could send us the identification and military action would be allowed.
Senator Flake, does that include things like al-Nusra, Hamas,
yes,
etc.?
They're in fact mentioned specifically here. Al-Nusra, at least, and al-Shabaab. So, because they are already defined as associated forces. So, thank you
very much. Hey, good work.
Thank you.
You can see it.
All right, back to studio, guys. That was Senators Flake and Kane talking about terrorism, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. We just jumped into halfway of that, but it was interesting to see that reporter mention the big news today, which is the Republican candidate for a special congressional election. What happened? He's body slammed.
In Montana, he was getting asked a question. Didn't seem, reports are that it wasn't overly aggressive in any way like that, but it ticked him off in some way, and he ended up body slamming the reporter. Actually got charged with a misdemeanor for assault. So, really, really big news out of there. It's
Suffice to say, he won't be moving on in his.
Well, you'd hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been no official word as to how his campaign's treating it are going to respond, or if the big brass on the Republican side are going to step in anyway. But you can only imagine that with news like that, you pretty much kill any chance of getting elected.
Yeah. So just to recap, so a Republican candidate for a special election in Montana body checked a reporter, and one of the reporters here just brought this up to Senator Flake, I think, and he said it's never okay to do that to a journalist or a reporter. So I thought it was just interesting, always bringing up the news of the day to these guys, even though they're talking about something else, and just to get a comment from these senators. But that was interesting news today. Also news of the day, we can't neglect this. It is Star Wars Day. It's the 40th anniversary.
40th anniversary of
I love this.
Of Star Wars.
We're going to play out some video. Okay, check this out. Our reporter, Bob Barnard, was at the Smithsonian this morning. They're doing a special thing in honor of the 40th anniversary. And it's, for those of you guys who enjoy that, that's exciting.
Yeah, obviously I was not alive when it first came out.
Right, but you're a fan.
I've watched them all over the years, and it's still a big deal to me. I'm sure that
there's our reporter.
Star Wars fans out there and enjoying it.
This was Bob getting ready for his live shot this morning. Smithsonian is doing a special event, or sort of a special exhibit and presentation of Star Wars: A New Hope in DC. They're going to be screening that over multiple different times. There's some events for today, the evening of today, Thursday. And there's free tickets to these screenings and other events and activities in the museum. So Bob got to talk here to a stormtrooper and just hang out.
Yeah, hang out. I don't know what. You can only imagine what they're talking about right now.
I know. This is behind the scenes, and then he came up and did a live shot for our morning show. So talking back to our anchors, and this must have been fun for him. It's always cool to go to the Smithsonian, I think, and see what they're exhibiting. This must have been cool.
Especially that one, the air and space is cool on its own.
Yes.
And, whenever you get a Star Wars, theme or link to anything, that just makes it that much cooler, at least in my mind. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's check in now. We got some other stuff popping up. We're gonna go over to some of the Democratic leaders. I'm looking at Chuck Schumer over here coming in live. They're talking about the Raise the Wage Act of 2017. Now, interestingly, also, I'm going to take you out of this, Star Wars. Interestingly, also, there was a local owner, the CEO, I think his name is Michael Lastoria of And Pizza. If you guys are familiar with that chain, which is in D.C. If you're not watching from D.C., you may not be familiar, but he was on Capitol Hill talking about minimum wage. So just like sort of a running theme, people holding these press conferences and events to talk about this important topic. So we're kind of switching gears all over the place, but that's the nature of this digital show. So we'll jump over to some of these Senate Dems, Democratic leader holding this press conference on Capitol Hill. Let's see what they're saying over here.
And this bill, we are proud to say, will be a part of our agenda that is spoken about and lobbied for and pushed for from one end of the country to the other. And so we're here today to ask President Trump to stick up for working people by supporting our bill to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. One of the things we say in America is if you work hard, you should be able, you're not going to become rich if you work hard, but at least you can live a life of dignity. You cannot do that today on minimum wage. You cannot promise your children that they will have a decent decent life if you're on minimum wage. So that's why we need to raise it and raise it significantly to $15 an hour. It's not even an economic issue, although I think it helps our economy big time. To me, it's a moral issue. It is a moral issue. You work hard, you have a decent life. That's been the American way since our country was founded. And unfortunately, in recent years, we've drifted away from that. The good news is this bill would give nearly half of all the workers in this country a raise. Let me repeat. Hear me? This would give a raise to nearly half the workers in this country. There you go. It's shameful that as we speak, Republicans are debating amongst themselves about how many people they should strip away their health care and how much of a massive tax cut they should give to the uber wealthy. So we Democrats, we're not going to nibble around the edges. We're going to go right for it. We're going to push and fight for bold legislation that will truly make American lives better. We're going to speak directly to our constituents and make the case for this bill, because this bill will actually make people's lives better. Now it's my honor to turn the podium over to Brittany Butler. She's a member of the Union Station Workers Council to tell her story.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Brittany Butler, and I work right down the street at Union Station. Like many other workers across the country, I've joined up with Good Jobs Nation to fight for $15 an hour in a union. You would think that workers in federal buildings like me earn living wages and enjoy the benefits like health care, paid leave, and retirement savings, but we don't. It's definitely not the case. We're struggling. In fact, the federal government is the leading low-wage job creator in America. Over 2 million workers like myself do not work on behalf of the federal government directly, but we work through contracts, loans, and leases, and we earn poverty wages. A $15 minimum wage can help workers like me a lot. I did the right thing. I went to college, I got an education, and I'm trying to make ends meet and pay my bills. But my student loan debt is constantly increasing. And with thousands and thousands of dollars in student loan debt, I can't repay back that debt with the wages I'm making now. A higher minimum wage can help me provide for myself and my family and start paying back those student loan debts. We work hard and we deserve a living wage, not a wage that guarantees workers a need to rely on public assistance and a handout, but we want a living wage so that we can provide for ourselves. Until now, Republicans in Congress have refused to raise our wages for all workers. Even though President Trump promised that there would be more jobs and better wages for American workers like me, we have seen nothing. He's made empty promises, and he has not followed through on what he said he would do. In fact, he's done just the opposite. The GOP has rolled back worker protections from wage theft to better safety and working environments. These issues affect workers like me every day. Democrats are stepping up and uniting in support of an agenda to rebuild the middle class. And I want to thank you. Everyone in this room, thank you so much for standing with us. We need a strategy to make sure that the government has the interests of workers like me in mind. We don't want one that removes our opportunities for a better life. Good Jobs Nation is proud to stand with Senator Sanders, Senator Schumer, Senator Murray, Keith Ellison, and Mr. Scott. They're introducing this bill today to help workers like me, and I look forward to continue working with them to develop a comprehensive strategy to rebuild the middle class and to uplift families like me. Again, we're trying to fight against the influence of corporate interests in politics. We need a guarantee that taxpayer money goes to create good jobs through federal contracts and loans. We don't want to live in poverty. We want to live with a wage that provides dignity for our families, and we want to be able to provide health and home and safety to our children and our families. We need a voice on the job, and raising that minimum wage is the first step. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany, for bringing your testimony to bear on this important subject. And as indicated by what Brittany had to say, this is a very important issue for women workers in our country. Nearly 2/3 of those who make the minimum wage are women. And as with Brittany in her case, some of them are raising their families and making sacrifices so that there can be higher profits for corporate America. This is an ossifying of the Gilded Age, the exploitation of workers for the benefit of profits for the few at the expense of the many. Yes, I was Speaker when we passed the minimum wage 10 years ago. Today, we were very proud of it. It was signed today, but we passed it in the first day that we came into office. Mr. Hoyer, our distinguished whip, is here. He knows that in the first 100 hours, we promised to the American people that if elected, we would raise the minimum wage, and we did. And we got to this point. We could only go this far with a Republican president, but we raised the minimum wage. And this day, after we passed the bill, we went out and had a rally on the lawn out here, and Senator Kennedy was so much a part of it, said as soon as we were finished, he said, you know what we have to do now? So what? He said, we have to raise the minimum wage. Because he knew right then and there that the 7.25, which is the eventual increase, was not enough. I'm very honored to join the fight for 15. This is a living wage. It's very important. We're proud of what we've done in California. I know that distinguished Senator Murray is proud of Washington State, but we want that to happen in the whole country. It's important for families, for moms. Some moms have to have 2 jobs, and they have 2 jobs that deprives them of the opportunity to mentor their children. So this is about, if we have family values, we must raise the minimum wage. If we care about the growth of our economy, just forgetting individuals, we can't, but if you just put it in terms of the economy will never grow to the extent that it must unless we put purchasing power into the hands of America's working families. So this increase in the minimum wage is the biggest stimulus that we can give to our economy. People will consume, they will inject demand into the economy, they will create jobs. It's good for the economy. It reduces the deficit. Most importantly, the impact it has in the lives of people so they can reach their aspirations, raise their families, and not live in a country that says, if you work hard, play by the rules, work full time, you live below the poverty line. You live before the poverty. That's just not right. So let's all join the fight for 15. And I'll tell you one thing for sure. We win the election in the first 100 hours, we will pass a $15 minimum wage. We'd rather have it now. We'd rather win on the issue than worry about the election. A champion on so many of these issues, the great senator from Washington State, Patty Murray.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Nancy, thank you for always being a champion for women and especially for workers. I so appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you and Senator Sanders and Representative Ellison and Scott, all of our colleagues who are here today to fight to raise the minimum wage. We are here today because of women like McCall. She's a mom in my home state of Washington. She has 2 little boys, and she's had to work 2 jobs to support her family and put a roof over their heads, meaning she struggles to spend the quality time with her family that so many of us take for granted. She struggles to afford healthy food for her family, for extracurricular activities and weekend trips. That's out of the question for her. She says to me she is one emergency away from homelessness. And no matter how hard she works, she says she cannot afford to plan. The strong steps that we have now taken in Washington State recently to raise the minimum wage will help women like McCall to support her family and become economically secure. But her story is one of so many. There are millions of women and men across the country who are unable to support their families earning the current minimum wage. Now, President Trump made a lot of promises to workers on the campaign trail. But instead of fighting for workers and bringing good-paying jobs back to communities, he has spent his first few months in office undermining the protections that our workers rely on, and putting forward policies that make it harder for families to become economically secure. That is simply the wrong direction for our country. Providing workers, and particularly millions of women who are supporting their families, with economic security is the first of many steps to fight back against President Trump's anti-worker, anti-woman vision for our country. So I'm very proud to be here today with all of our colleagues to introduce the Raise the Wage Act today to gradually raise the minimum wage in our country to $15 an hour. Under this bill, 23 million women in our country will get a raise, including 43% of Black working women and 38% of Hispanic working women. And importantly in our legislation, we eliminate the tipped wage. The Raise the Wage Act will help provide economic security to 2/3 of our tipped workers who are women. So raising the minimum wage, as others have said, will provide greater economic opportunity for millions of workers, including those with disabilities, and help them transition out of poverty and begin earning a fair wage. I've seen it work in my home state of Washington and across the country, and our country is strongest when its workers and families are strong. So instead of continuing down the anti-worker policies we have seen, I hope this administration joins us.
Hey guys, we're back in the studio. We're going to switch it up for you guys in just a moment. We have some other stories to share with you, but we're just getting in a feed live in Arlington National Cemetery. We're expecting this ceremony as we lead up to Memorial Day. The Old Guard, they will be placing, I'm going to get the details for you guys here. They're honoring fallen military heroes in Arlington National Cemetery with a flag in, is what they call it. And this is an old tradition from the Old Guard, from the Army and official ceremonial units ever since 1948 has done this. So we're going to take you over there and give you this live footage of the placing of the flags at these gravestones here. You guys are watching a steady cam over at Arlington National Cemetery for an annual tradition here by the Old Guard. That's the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment of the U.S. Army. This is a sort of a time-old tradition and the Army's official ceremonial unit ever since 1948. You can see here the Old Guard soldiers here placing flags at each gravestone here in Arlington National Cemetery. And we know as we're leading up to Memorial Day, this is even more of an important and ceremonial event at Arlington. Kim?
Yeah, they end up putting flags at roughly 230,000 headstones within 4 hours. There's about 1,000 military members working on this, placing the flags. It's just an incredible amount and deserved by all the men and women who have given their lives for this country.
Definitely. So like Cam said, more than, they're saying about 280,000 grave heads there will receive a flag from the Old Guard. This is a ceremony that they had an official tomb sentinel ceremony at about noon today, and then they went on to conduct this ceremony of placing the flag. So it's sort of just a stagnant shot here. You can hear, someone mentioned the cicadas in the background. You can hear that sound a little bit, just that stillness with a little bit of sound. And really just a beautiful shot here of the cemetery as we gear up for Memorial Day weekend. This is live over in Arlington. That's what you're looking at if you're just joining us on Facebook or YouTube. These are the Old Guard soldiers. They'll place a small American flag 1 foot in front and centered right there in front of each of these more than 280,000 gravestones. It's called a flags in ceremony. That's what they call it. If you guys are just joining us on Facebook or on YouTube, you're watching a live stream of Arlington National Cemetery over in Arlington, of course. We don't see a soldier in view right now, but this is an annual tradition here, gearing up for Memorial Day weekend, where the Old Guard will be placing, and they've already placed several of these, of course, along these rows, a small American flag 1 foot in front of each grave head there, and centered. It takes just a lot of, it takes a lot of focus and work and precision. They'll be doing this on about more than 250,000 gravestones to commemorate and honor the more than 400,000 who are interred at Arlington National Cemetery. So We had a shot earlier of a soldier there. We'll see if we get any more in view. But 1,000, right, Kim, of these soldiers are involved.
About 1,000, working for just under 4 hours, it says.
Mm-hmm.
Place all these American flags. You can see each one. Each tombstone gets its own flag.
Mm-hmm.
Just some recognition of that soldier's service.
And the tradition has been conducted, I'm reading, annually since the Old Guard was actually designated as the Army's official ceremonial unit ever since 1948. And I'm seeing some of your comments here, lots of salutes and God bless. I'm sure we have lots of military, former military or military families that are watching. So salute to you guys, and we look forward to seeing this. And as we go into Memorial Day weekend, other events and ceremonies that honor our veterans and our fallen, of course, on Memorial Day on Monday. You can see sort of in the background there, I think we see a soldier for a second. We have this cam kind of set up, down low, beautiful shot, gets the array of the gravestones there. There he is, one of the guys in the back there placing these flags. And more than 1,000 of them are there on the grounds today.
Spread out all the cemetery with these flags.
Mm-hmm. I had the honor of being able to help place the wreaths on these gravestones actually this past Christmas. My former alma mater university organized a group, and lots of groups, organizational groups and humanitarian groups, and lots of groups come together to do that. They have these, trucked in wreaths, and that's also another ceremonial event for the fallen here, and these grave heads. Looks like the sun is just about coming out a little bit over there.
A little bit finally after days and days of rain, but it's good that the sun's finally coming out for the ceremony like this.
Yeah, right, exactly. We this is the particular ceremony. It starts around now. I think there may be an official ceremony at 1, so maybe we'll hear some words or some procession if we have a camera there, but we'll try to bring that to you guys. Thanks for all your comments. I'm seeing lots of "We Stand United, Never Forget, God Bless America." Thank you to all that set the flags. Thank you guys for commenting. Comment below with maybe your connection to Arlington, or your perhaps connection to the military, or thoughts on this Memorial Day. Don't forget to comment below. We'll read some of your comments on our stream here. But again, if you're just joining us, Arlington National Cemetery here for the Old Guard's placing of the flags. It's called the Flags In, which you see at the bottom of your screen. It's an annual tradition now, more than 60 years old.
Yeah, all the way since 1948 it's been going on. So it's quite a long time.
More than 60 years old to set these flags as part of the ceremonies leading up to Memorial Day, which is, of course, Monday. So enjoy this natural sound here, just the cicadas, the hum of the cicadas. As these soldiers place the flags, we're going to take this off so you might be able to see a little bit more. So if you guys are just joining us on YouTube or Facebook, you're watching our live stream here of this Flags in ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. You hear the cicadas in the background, just a quiet, solemn day here for these soldiers here. The Old Guard is placing American flags at each gravehead, or not each, but almost a lot of them here. About 280,000 gravestones will be placed with the flag of the 400,000 that are interred at Arlington National Cemetery. They'll also, these tomb sentinels, as they're called, will be placing flags at the tomb of the unknown soldier as well, as a representation to all the bodies that are interred there at the cemetery. And I'm seeing some of your comments here on our feed of maybe your connection to the military, or just a comment here: God bless our fallen soldiers, we will never forget. USA, we salute you all. And this is just a good shot here. You can see those guys in the background placing these flags, but just a really cool, time-honored tradition, 60 years old. Yeah. They do it all in about 4 hours, right?
Yeah, which is really pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Really just amazing effort by the Old Guard to show their appreciation, really represent all of that.
Yeah, and the Old Guard is the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment. It's this tradition itself was started and designated as the Army's official ceremonial unit back in, like I said, the late 40s, and they began doing this. So you can see more of them coming out here. We just had one cross by, but this is a great shot. You can see the array of stones there at Arlington Cemetery, and these flags will stay up through the weekend, through Memorial Day, which is Monday, of course, and then be taken down after Memorial Day, when the cemetery will again open to the public. So that is sort of the schedule for what they do. And there's a bunch of ceremonial events sort of in the similar fashion. We were mentioning earlier the wreath laying during Christmas time. There's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that
You'll see a very large white stack
all
out
the
because of the war
around the tomb that served here, manned 24/7 by military personnel, and they trade out, I want to say, every hour, and it's a really an incredible ceremony if you ever get an opportunity to go see it. And 21 gun salute that happens there somewhat frequently, which traces its origins all the way back to the 17th century. It says, according to the Arlington National Cemetery website, and just really an incredible place for the memory and for recognizing the sacrifice of all of the men and women in our armed forces.
Definitely an amazing symbol of that. So thank you guys for checking in on our live stream here. This is live at Arlington National Cemetery. We'll see how long we have this feed for you guys, and just keep it up so you can scroll by and check it out as we gear up for Memorial Day weekend, which isn't just the beginning of summer. Of course, it is first and foremost a day of remembrance of our fallen soldiers, and this is a perfect example of how we celebrate that and honor that. And I thought that was a good thing to bring to you guys today. We're also on our YouTube stream as well. If this feed ends, you can switch over to our YouTube channel, Fox 5 DC, and you'll see more of this and other events of the day. Thanks for checking in with us, guys, and enjoy this feed here from Arlington National Cemetery. All right, guys, if you're just joining us here, welcome to Fox 5 Live. We're streaming this event. It's called The Flags In at Arlington National Cemetery. You're watching here the Old Guard, part of the 3rd Infantry Regiment of the U.S. Army here, place American flags on more than 284,000 grave heads here at Arlington Cemetery in advance of Memorial Day, which is Monday, of course. It takes them, they spend about 4 hours doing so, and about 1,000 of these guys are out there placing these flags right now. So we have our camera steady down low there to get this angle, and you can see a lot of them in view here now. This is an old tradition, Cam.
Yeah, ever since 1948, correct?
Yeah.
Ever since 1948, when the when the Old Guard was created as kind of a ceremonial regiment, they've been doing this in order to honor all the fallen men and women interred in National Cemetery, and really to bring attention and pay their respects to all servicemen and women, both currently serving and retired around the U.S. Just as a token of their respect and as a representation of really the respect of all of the U.S.
Yeah, and we're reading that they also, these tomb sentinels, as they're called, also go over to the tomb of the unknown soldier and place flags in front of that area of tombs to represent the more than, like you were mentioning, 400,000 men and women who are interred at this cemetery. These flags will stay up through the weekend, of course, through Memorial Day, and then be taken off after Memorial Day Monday itself. And then the cemetery again will open to the public as it normally is on Tuesday, I believe. Yeah, I'm actually not sure if it's open on the holiday. I think I'm not positive on the date on that, but they are, when it's ready to open for the public, those flags will have already been removed. And you can see this shot will take us out for a second. There's more soldiers doing it. We got a nice view there. If you guys have any comments you want to leave us right below, go ahead and comment on our feed. We want to hear from you if you're connected to the military or perhaps family members or any other connection that you have to Arlington Cemetery. It would be nice to hear what brings you over to this feed. Yeah. We're hearing lots of God bless our soldiers. Thank you for your service. Tiara Wright says. Sarah Kelly, bless the fallen and bless their families. A lot of action in this shot, but just sort of a solemn stillness to honor these soldiers as we move along towards Memorial Day weekend. Lots of people heading out of town, but lots of people around too. I mean, DC is sort of a hub for people staying here or coming here for this, to do just this, to honor.
Really for this reason, exactly. The Rolling Thunder.
Exactly.
The Blue Angels flyover that we watched yesterday, right here on this stream and on Facebook.
Yep.
Obviously that was in Annapolis, but same area, and then, celebrations like this, and there's no better place to be for Memorial Day weekend than this capital.
Definitely, as we see lots of the commencement ceremonies of these branches of the military. The Air Force graduated this week. We see the U.S. Naval Academy will be this weekend or Friday, tomorrow. And yeah, just lots of military events like we saw.
Welcome, Mr. President. I want to say, before we start, one person is in Sachsen-Deutsch, für den Kopfhörer. Ich habe Ihre Rede heute gehört in Berlin und als Sie über Menschlichkeit gesprochen haben, als Sie zum Beispiel gesagt haben, zur Flüchtlingsfrage. Ein Kind, das auf der anderen Seite der Grenze steht, ist genauso wichtig wie mein eigenes Kind. Worte der Hoffnung, sehr gefühlsvolle Worte, und mir ging dabei durch den Kopf, dass dieser berühmte Zusatz Artikel 22 zur amerikanischen die Herren Präsidenten, die Damen und Herren, der Ministerpräsident, die Herren Minister und Abgeordneten,
All right, guys, we're back in the studio. It's Molly Nevola here and intern Cam checking in with you. We're going to go over now to another event happening right now. If you're watching on our YouTube, thanks for joining in on our stream. Former President Obama, Barack Obama, is in Germany. We saw him this morning, very early in the morning, our time. It was around the 5 o'clock hour, speaking with Angela Merkel there about, it was a Protestant event actually in conjunction with the anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. But now, totally different. He's receiving an award, actually. It's called the German Media Prize 2016 for embodying a vision of hope and change. We're going to see what they have to say to him and how he accepts this award and kind of what's all going on with that. So let's jump over there right away and then we'll comment on it later.
Staatsmänner. Doch mehr noch Dr. Wolfgang Schäuble, der dem Deutschen Bundestag seit 1972 angehört, ist seit 45 Jahren der am längsten dienende Abgeordnete der deutschen Parlamentsgeschichte.
Dr. Schäuble.
Herr Dr. Schäuble, Sie haben mit Ihrer schier übermenschlichen Energie und Disziplin diesem Land viel gegeben und dieses Land braucht Sie weiterhin. Danke, dass Sie da sind. Ich möchte mich an dieser Stelle auch beim ehemaligen amerikanischen Botschafter John Emerson bedanken, der mir geholfen hat, diese Veranstaltung möglich zu machen. Mr. President, we are missing him so much. He was a great guy. Willkommen auf Ben Roth, der uns geholfen hat, diese Veranstaltung möglich zu machen. Aber genug der Vorrede, Herr Ministerpräsident. Ich freue mich auf Ihr Grußwort.
Exzellenz, sehr geehrter Herr Präsident Obama, sehr geehrter Herr Gauck, sehr geehrte Frau Schaak, sehr geehrter lieber Herr Kögel, liebe Frau Kögel, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren. Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, es ist mir eine große Ehre, Sie bei uns in Baden-Württemberg willkommen heißen zu dürfen. Und es ist mir eine Freude, mich einmal persönlich...
So guys, we're going to keep this volume sort of low until we have more sound from Barack Obama himself, because I know they're doing some English translations and it's sort of rough to hear. So we brought down the audio a little bit, but Obama was in Berlin earlier this morning. And of course, we know President Trump, who we had earlier on live, was in Brussels. So they're both in Europe, just sort of simultaneously, which happens to be interesting. And he's here. I think he went a little south for this. I'm actually not sure if I think he left Berlin. He's south of Berlin to accept this award. It's called the German Media Prize from 2016. We're efforting some more information on this and on what he's going to be talking about. We'll hear from him and sort of see what he has to say in this award acceptance. I'm not sure when he's up, but We're going to look into it. So you're watching Fox 5 Live in Washington, D.C., and this is live happening in Germany right now. You can see former President Barack Obama there in the middle. Pretty interesting.
Das Ruder herumgerissen. Sie haben in ihrem Land gezeigt, Wohlstand und Klimaschutz, Ökonomie und Ökologie sind hervorragend miteinander vereinbar. Aber sie haben nicht nur national, sondern auch international sich für den Klimaschutz stark gemacht. Vor dem Klimaschutzgipfel in Paris haben der kalifornische Governor Jerry Brown versucht, den internationalen Klimaschutz auf der Ebene der subnationalen Staaten durch ein Abkommen der Regionen zu unterstützen. Inzwischen machen 167 Regionen und Kommunen weltweit mit, die ein Drittel der Weltwirtschaft repräsentieren. Eine echte Erfolgsgeschichte. Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, ohne Sie wäre das Klimaschutzabkommen von Paris nicht zustande gekommen. Paris war ein Durchbruch, der den Klimaschutz zum globalen Trend gemacht hat und für immer mit Ihrem Namen verbunden sein wird. Natürlich fehlt uns inzwischen etwas Ihre Gestaltungskraft als Präsident der Vereinigten Staaten. Umso mehr freuen wir uns darüber, dass Sie weiterhin die Kraft Ihrer Persönlichkeit einbringen und Ihre Stimme erheben, denn diese Stimme brauchen wir. Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, ich freue mich, dass Sie heute hier bei uns sind und ich gratuliere Ihnen ganz herzlich zum Medienpreis 2016. Vielen Dank und alles Gute für Sie.
Die Preisverleihung des heutigen Abends ist eine ganz besondere. Nicht nur, weil wir das 25. Jubiläum des Deutschen Medienpreises feiern, sondern weil unser Preisträger ein ganz außergewöhnlicher Mann ist. Noch vor 10 Jahren waren Sie, verehrter Herr Präsident, außerhalb der Vereinigten Staaten nur wenig politisch Interessierten bekannt. Mittlerweile kann man ohne Übertreibung sagen, dass Sie nicht nur auf allen 5 Kontinenten der Erde zu den bekanntesten Persönlichkeiten zählen, sondern dass in den Augen von Millionen, wenn nicht Milliarden Menschen eine ganz bestimmte Vision verkörpern. Die Vision einer Welt, in der es Hoffnung gibt und Wandel zum Besseren möglich ist. Weil keine andere Persönlichkeit in diesem Jubiläumsjahr, kein anderer erfüllt die Kriterien, die es für den Medienpreis gibt, so wie Sie. Die 3 Kriterien, die das sind: Excellence, Vision and Leadership. Mit Ihnen, dem 44. Präsidenten der Vereinigten Staaten, ehren wir den begnadetsten politischen Kommunikator unserer Zeit. Wir würdigen die Vision und die Werte, die Ihre Amtszeit prägen, und zeichnen mit Ihnen eine politische Führungspersönlichkeit aus, die exemplarisch gezeigt hat, was Worte und Ideen bewirken können, wenn sie die Köpfe und auch die Herzen der Menschen erreichen. Und sei es nur mit 3 Worten, inzwischen eingebrannt in unser Herzen: Yes, we can. Es war 2004. Sie stellten sich zur Wahl als Senator von Illinois. Sie brauchten einen TV-Spot. Sie hatten kein großes Budget und treten im Wohnzimmer eines Nachbarn. I'm really sorry. We had dinner last night and he told me that story much better than I could tell it. Would you do it? Would you explain that?
Well, I think the story I'm referring to is the fact that I didn't think "Yes, we can" was a very good slogan. And so my political consultant, David Axelrod, had to go to Michelle, and Michelle was the one who told me that I should go with "Yes, we can." So I want a full disclosure today. She gets all the credit for that slogan, not me. That's the truth.
Die Anekdote zeigt aber noch mehr. Ein Einzelner kann nur wenig bewirken. Das Wir, die politische Botschaft ist zentral. Sie, Herr Präsident, haben dieses kleine Wort.
Yeah, so we're not quite sure when Obama will make his acceptance of the award or his speech, but that was kind of a cute little aside.
Yeah, I like that.
Always referencing Michelle as being, you know, his sort of confidant and like leader in his decisions. But I know the sound is a little bit tricky and rough with the English translation over it, so we may just wait a little while longer or maybe jump out of this before Obama comes up. But this is all happening live in Germany. Obama will be accepting an award. But earlier this morning, tens of thousands of people gathered in Berlin to hear former President Obama speak with Angela Merkel. It was at a Protestant conference, so the German Protestant church was heavily in attendance at this event, and they spoke on democracy and global responsibility. And I have that video. I think we'll jump over there to listen to what he had to say earlier this morning, and then we'll go back to the acceptance of the award. Oh no. I gotta fix the volume for you guys. We're gonna find out where to get that. We'll be right back with you.
Von Martin Luther King, die sie in den Teppichboden im Oval Office haben einweben lassen. Da stand, der Bogen der Geschichte ist lang, aber er neigt sich zur Gerechtigkeit. Der Spannungsbogen von politischem, sozialem Engagement, das Hinbiegen der Realität von heute auf die Hoffnung von morgen. Das passiert nicht automatisch, das braucht harte Arbeit. Sie, verehrter Herr Präsident, leben und repräsentierten ganz persönlich diese Botschaft. Es ist nur etwas mehr als 10 Jahre her, als Sie als damaliger Senator in Ihrem Buch mit dem Titel Die Kühnheit der Hoffnung mit Blick auf Ihre damals schon beeindruckende Karriere resümierten, dass Sie generell ungeduldig mit dem Leben sind. Sie sprechen sogar von einer chronischen Ratlosigkeit, die Sie früh in politische Verantwortung gebracht hat. Obwohl Sie schon Beeindruckendes geleistet hatten, waren Sie sich noch nicht angekommen. Das verbindet Sie mit einer anderen prägenden Persönlichkeit der amerikanischen Geschichte, dem Gründungsvater und späteren Finanzminister Alexander Hamilton.
All right, guys, we fixed the sound on that video. We're going to go over to former President Obama earlier in Berlin. We found this video for you before he speaks. We're still going to jump back over to this live event when he comes up to the podium. But here was former President Obama this morning talking about democracy and global responsibility at a Protestant event in conjunction with the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation.
As many of you know, healthcare in the United States, we are unique among advanced countries that we don't have universal health care, that oftentimes there are people who are sick who cannot get care or they have to go to an emergency room to get care. My hope was that I was able to get 100% of people health care while I was president. We didn't quite achieve that, but we were able to get 20 million people health care who didn't have it before. And certainly I have some regrets that we weren't able to get everyone health care, and obviously some of the progress that we made is now imperiled because there's still a significant debate taking place in the United States. But the point, though, is that for those 20 million people, their lives have been better. And we've set a standard of what's possible that people can then build on. I often say that in politics, or at least what I used to say about the presidency, is I saw myself as a relay runner. I would take the baton and I would run my leg of the race. And then I pass on the baton to someone else. And again, that's part of the reason why I'm so interested in talking to young people here today, because each generation tries to make progress knowing that what we do is not going to be perfect, that it's not going to be solve every problem, and that we're going to have to then pass the baton to somebody behind us. But hopefully we've run our leg of the race effectively. And the world's gotten a little bit better. And certainly that's been true in Germany, that's been true in Europe. When you think about just what's happened in my lifetime, despite all the tragedies that we see every day, the world has never been wealthier, it has never been more healthy, it's never been better educated. Young people today have access to information and opportunities that would be unimaginable when I was born or Angela was born. And if we can sustain that progress, then I feel very optimistic about our futures, but it's ultimately going to depend on the young people here today, and my job now is to help them take it the next step.
Sie haben jetzt gesprochen über ein sehr wichtiges innenpolitisches Thema. Was fällt Ihnen ein, wenn Sie sich Ihre Rolle in der internationalen Politik, in der Welt, in diesen 8 Jahren vor Augen führen? Wo haben Sie Regrets? Was bedauern Sie? Und wo haben Sie das Gefühl gehabt, ja, heute weiß ich, warum ich das alles tue und warum es gut ist, dass ich diesen Weg gegangen bin und jetzt als Präsident das tun kann, was ich tue?
Well, the Chancellor and I were talking briefly before we came out. I think the international order is at a crossroads. It's an important time in the international community. If you think about what occurred, I was born in 1961, which I know that makes me seem very old to many of you. But in history, that's actually not a very long time. And when I was born, Berlin was divided. The Iron Curtain was up. Apartheid still reigned in South Africa. Dictatorships were the norm in large portions of the world. We had just emerged out of a devastating world war, a Korean war. We were about to enter into a Vietnam war, the United States was. Countries were still emerging from colonialism. And because I think of a set of ideals and principles, rule of law, the dignity of individuals, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, a liberal market-based economy, because of these principles that in fits and starts, Europe and the United States and other countries joined together to try to promote and spread, we saw incredible progress. And here in Europe, there has never been greater prosperity and greater peace than over the last 3-4 decades. That's an amazing achievement. And I think sometimes young people take it for granted. But I think that what we now have to recognize is that because of globalization and because of technology and the disruptions that have occurred, the inequality that exists between nations and within countries, because of the fact that the internet brings us all closer together, but we're still from different cultures and sometimes feel disoriented by the world shrinking because of things like the refugee crisis, that this order that has been created has to be changed, it has to be updated, it has to be continually renewed, because there's a competing narrative of fear and xenophobia and nationalism and intolerance and anti-democratic trends. And so when I think about my role when I was president, but also now as a citizen of the United States and part of the world community, what I think is most important is that we rally around those values and ideals that are best. And we have to push back against those trends that would violate human rights or that would suppress democracy or that would restrict individual freedoms of conscience and religion. And that is going to be a significant battle that we have to fight. All of us have to be a part of. And it's not always easy because, for example, I look at a place like Syria, where despite our best efforts, and this is something Angela and I worked on a lot, you still have a vicious war taking place. You still have millions of people displaced, hundreds of thousands killed. And it is going to require, I think, everything we can do to recognize that what happens on the other side of the world or in these other countries, whether it's in Africa or Asia or Latin America, that it has an impact on us and that we're going to have to be invested in trying to help those countries achieve peace and prosperity. And as president, I did not always have the tools that I wanted to affect those kinds of changes, but at least we tried. And part of the goal here is if you try long enough, eventually what President Abraham Lincoln called the better angels of our nature, I think can win out.
Ja. Jetzt möchte ich mich an die Bundeskanzlerin wenden. Einige der Themen, die der Präsident angesprochen hat, werden wir nachher noch mal vertiefen. Ich möchte jetzt noch mal die Bundeskanzlerin fragen. Frau Bundeskanzlerin, das Thema ist ja Demokratie, unsere Veranstaltung heute. Und auch die Frage, was können wir als Christinnen und Christen dazu beitragen? Nun ist es ja so, das ist schon angeklungen, dass die Demokratie in vieler Hinsicht bedroht ist. Wir haben bei vielen Menschen ein Gefühl des sich Entfernens von den Grundorientierungen und dem Engagement in der Demokratie. Manche Menschen haben das Gefühl, die wichtigsten Probleme werden nicht gelöst. Die Politik scheint ohnmächtig gegenüber den Problemen zu sein. Wir haben diskutiert über die Flüchtlingsfrage und Europa hat es nicht geschafft, eine gemeinsame Position wirklich zu finden. Können Sie verstehen, wenn Menschen sich von der Demokratie abwenden, weil sie das Gefühl haben, sie löst die Probleme nicht?
Also erst einmal glaube ich, dass es in der Tat so ist, dass natürlich, wie es eben Barack Obama auch gesagt hat, 100%ige Lösungen selten gelingen.
All right, guys, we're going to take it back to us in the newsroom here. The German is tricky with the English translation over it. It's hard to hear with that mic, but Obama continued to speak a little bit more, so we could kind of jump in and out of that if we need to. But we're keeping an eye still on this live event over in I guess, south of Berlin in Germany. This is what it looks like. And we're waiting on former President Barack Obama to talk and accept his award. I don't believe that's happened yet, so we're kind of still watching that. But while we take a look at that, we are going to bring you this cool graphic. Check this out. Cam, you were looking into this. NOAA, which stands for
the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, released their outlook, their prediction for this hurricane season. And as you can see from the graphic, there's a 45% chance of an above normal hurricane season kind of output as far as the severity and the frequency of the storms. 35% chance of a near normal, and 20% chance of below normal. So they're predicting the odds are that we'll get more of a hurricane, tropical storm, just heavy storm, heavy wind type of season. Yeah. And then on the right there, you see the number of the actual numbers of kind of storms that they're predicting. So 11 to 17 named storms, which I think anything that even could potentially escalate to hurricane, including tropical storms,
they'll name them.
Qualify in there. So they've got 11 to 17 named storms. of which 5 to 9 they project to be hurricanes, and 2 to 4 to be major hurricanes. So, something to look out for, especially in Florida, the Gulf, and the southern Atlantic coast. Something to be aware of there.
Definitely. And I was going to say, NOAA, they had their announcement. They had a news conference today. It was around 11. We didn't catch it live, but this is all a lot of the information that came out today. So we grabbed it from their basically prediction of the storm season this year and forecasting. So this is the official word from them. We wanted to bring that to you guys on our show.
Yeah, kind of a cool little graphic there, just to see, just a little heads up of what to look at in between now and the end of hurricane season, which is through.
When is that
according
through?
to NOAA,
Yeah.
I want to say it's mid-November. I'm looking up the actual facts for you here.
Okay. And we definitely have the storm heightening in the summer and in August.
Yeah, I mean the summer through August is the big kind of timing through that, but then they extend it through September and into October at least. And I want to say it goes to mid-November, but I can't find the actual the
data
figure on that just to tell you for certain.
Yeah, but if you're watching us, once again, just thanks for joining us here on Fox 5 Live. We're in Washington, D.C. at Fox 5 Local News. We're the digital newsroom. Molly here and intern Cam, and we are just checking in with the trending stories, anything breaking that is coming into us. And right now, we're waiting on former President Obama to speak. He's in Germany accepting an award. This is what it looks like over there. But he has not gone up to the podium yet. So we're kind of waiting on him there. And we're going to see what else we can bring you as far as breaking news and other video. We heard from President Trump. There's Obama himself. We heard from President Trump this morning at the NATO headquarters. That was what we basically opened the show with. We had the NATO ceremony, all those world leaders coming together. They had a working dinner as well around that same hour. And President Trump himself made a little speech there, which we can bring to you again as we sort of wait for more content here out of Germany. So we'll leave it here for a second and bring you back some more video shortly.
Unsere Ideale und der Realität der Zeit zu schließen. Sie haben einmal den Roman Solomons Lied von Toni Morrison als ihren Lieblingsroman bezeichnet. Die Geschichte eines Afroamerikaners, der auf der Suche nach einem angeblichen Familiengold auf seine Familiengeschichte stößt. Eine Geschichte auch über den Wunsch, fliegen zu können. Einem Menschen, der von einem Hochhaus springt, wird dieser Wunsch unweigerlich in den Tod reißen. Bei einem Menschen aber, der sich dem Wunsch in der Fantasie hingibt, wird eine ungeahnte Leichtigkeit in die Seele einziehen. Ja, fliegen kann der Mensch nur in Gedanken, aber Toni Morrison wusste es, so jedenfalls die Schlusszeile ihres Romans, If you surrender to air, you could ride it. Nein, Präsident Obama, Sie sind kein Idealist, aber Sie sind empfänglich für das Wort, das Sie in Gefilde führen kann, die der Seele Kraft verleihen. Auch deswegen sind Sie ein Präsident gewesen, der das Wort in einer Weise zu führen vermochte, die anderen Kraft zu geben imstande war, wenn Sie eine gemeinsame Zukunft entwarfen. In Ihren Worten von 2009 hört sich das so an. With eyes fixed on the horizon and God's grace upon us, we carried forth the great gift of freedom and delivered it safely to future generations. Vielleicht ist es diese besondere Mischung aus politischen Themen, Wahrnehmung von Interessen,
aus Werteorientierung und der Haltung eines Individuums, das seinen Möglichkeiten traut, was wir an Deutschland, in Deutschland an ihnen bewundern und was wir brauchen. Es muss ja einen Grund dafür geben, dass sich hier in Deutschland so viele Menschen von Ihnen inspirieren lassen. So blicken wir mit Dank und großem Respekt auf Ihr politisches Werk, auf Ihren Weg, auf ein Werk, das über die Jahre Ihrer Amtszeit bleibend hinausragt. Ich gratuliere Ihnen von ganzem Herzen zum Deutschen Medienpreis.
2016 is awarded to the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Well, Mr. President, thank you so much for those extraordinarily kind words. I want to thank Karl-Heinz for his generous introduction. I am extremely humbled to be receiving this German Media Prize. And unlike the Nobel Committee, I'm grateful that you waited until I was out of office before bestowing it on me. I only wish that my daughters were here tonight because I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, and when you have teenage girls, they don't think their dad is all that important. And so I wish they'd been listening to both of you, because then maybe they'd listen to me. But I very much appreciate this. I want to thank the governor for his kind words. And I do also want to acknowledge Dr. Schäuble, who he and I attended, I've lost count of how many G20s and G7s and EU meetings, but he was a great collaborator in helping to save the world economy and has guided Germany extraordinarily well, along with so many others that I worked with over the last 8.5 years. So thank you very much for your outstanding work. I also want to say at the beginning of my remarks that, like so many others, I was horrified by the heinous attacks in Manchester, England the other night. And I want to once again offer my condolences to the people of the United Kingdom. Because we've seen attacks like this in Berlin, and in Paris, and in Brussels, and in many places in the United States. We have to constantly remind ourselves that these aren't attacks on government buildings or military targets. They're attacks on places where ordinary citizens gather. In this circumstance, many children gathered. It was an attack on a free and open society. And it was an attack on the spirit of democracy itself. I believe that those who are responsible will ultimately be brought to justice. And I know this not only because the confidence that I have in our military and our intelligence services and our law enforcement, but most importantly because I know the character of our peoples. And you can see it in the way that the people of Manchester responded, not simply with fear, but with resolve and with kindness and solidarity and a willingness to help people who are in need. That's why I believe we will prevail, because our way of life is stronger. Now, it is extraordinary to be back in Germany. As was mentioned, I visited Berlin as a candidate for president. I have to say, by the way, that I was reminiscing with one of my senior aides, Ben Rhodes, who's here tonight, and I had to remind him that
I did not give full approval for setting up the speech outside because I had no idea how many people would show up. And I was a little bit worried that if we only had 50 people there, it would look really bad. It turned out pretty well. In addition, I made 6 visits to Germany as president. And I spent some time this afternoon with somebody whose leadership spanned all of those visits, who I believe has been an extraordinary leader for a free and united Germany, and somebody who was a steadfast partner to me over the 8 years that I was president of the United States, and along the way became a good friend, and that is your Chancellor, Angela Merkel. I very much miss working with her, as I do with Dr. Schreiber, although I must confess that I do not miss the 5 or 6 summits that we had to attend each year. And I also appreciate the fact that I'm getting more sleep these days than you are. I'm going to have an opportunity to take a few questions, but let me first just offer a few observations in light of the extraordinarily kind words that were said before I came. It's been clear for a while that the world is at an inflection point. You have the accelerated pace of globalization and the unrelenting pace of technological change. And these shifts have shaken the foundation of communities, individual families, and our collective politics, both in developed countries and in developing countries. The challenges of our times, whether it's economic inequality, or climate change, or terrorist attacks, or mass migration. These are real challenges, and the pace of change and the shrinking of the globe means that the challenges will accelerate. And what's more, in an age of instant information, where television and Twitter can feed us a steady stream of bad news, and oftentimes feeds on conflict and controversy. I know it can sometimes seem like the international order that was created after World War II is being continually tested, and that maybe the center cannot hold. It leaves people searching for some sense of certainty, some sense of control, some hard ground to stand on. And in some cases, it leads to new calls for isolationism or nationalism, to roll back the rights of others, to retreat into the comfortable point of view that what's good for me is good enough, and everybody else is on their own. And these responses are understandable and sometimes tempting reactions to changing times. During periods like this, as people search for some sense of certainty and stability and control in their lives, it is inevitable that our social arrangements and our politics become disrupted. In fact, the world went through a similar moment in the shift from the agricultural era to the industrial age. And then, too, there was a temptation to respond to great uncertainty by falling back into the comfort of tribes and xenophobia and a politics of us versus them. And the First and Second World Wars showed us all too terribly what happens when we do not respond to changes in a positive way, when we respond out of fear rather than hope. We also know that there is a better way to overcome our fears, to reach across divides, to think anew and to act anew, and to emerge stronger than before. And this, too, is evident in our history. As was mentioned, and I've said this before here in Germany and around Europe, one of the great achievements in human history was the manner in which the United States and Europe, in the wake of those terrible world wars, built a new international order that allowed us, not always perfectly, oftentimes in fits and starts, but steadily to build a better vision of humanity. A liberal market-based order that placed primacy on our individual rights of freedom of speech and press and religion and assembly, that upheld the rule of law and democracy and pluralism. And from the ruins of war, our countries set out to remake the world and to build this new international order and to build institutions to uphold it. A United Nations that might help avoid a third world war and might advance a more just and lasting peace. International financial institutions to promote prosperity for all peoples. A declaration of human rights to advance the inalienable rights of all members of the human family. And here in Europe, unity bound old adversaries through commerce and through trade and a commitment to democracy and rule of law and the dignity of all people. And none of this was easy. Old animosities had to be overcome. National pride had to be joined with a commitment to a common good. At every step, there was an impulse to pull back for each country to go on its own or to take advantage of a country that was weaker. And those impulses had to be resisted. More than once, there were skeptics that predicted the demise of this extraordinary project. But the vision of European unity soldiered on, and America stood with you every step of the way. And so in my lifetime, we saw a wall come tumbling down, and Germany emerge unified and stronger than before. Just as in my lifetime we saw Mandela emerge and help lead a country out of the barbarity of apartheid. In my lifetime, we created an international order that allowed us to grow economies that previously had been considered backwaters. The global average life expectancy increased by about 2 decades. We cut extreme poverty in half. This international order and the vision and the ideals that we promoted imperfectly, but nevertheless steadily, made it possible for women to vote in every democracy, made the freedom to marry who you love a reality in a growing number of nations. And although racial and religious discrimination remain a stubborn part of all of our societies, they're no longer considered acceptable, they're no longer considered right, those attitudes. And the next generation embraces diversity and respect and tolerance like never before. Our freedom, our quality of life in the West remains the envy of the world. So much so that families will walk across deserts and cross seas on makeshift rafts, risk everything just for the chance that their children might know the blessings that we enjoy and often take for granted. And that's why, as was mentioned earlier, I do often tell young people that if you had to choose one moment in human history in which to be born and you didn't know ahead of time who you were going to be, you didn't know your nationality or your gender, you didn't know your race, you didn't know whether you were going to be rich or poor or an aristocrat or a peasant, you didn't know and you were behind a curtain and you said, when would you have the best chance to live the best life? You choose right now. Because the world has never been healthier or wealthier, and despite terrible conflicts that continue and the very real specter of terrorism, the world at large is less violent, not more violent.
Hi guys, if you're just joining us on our feed here, you're watching former President Barack Obama accept an award in Germany. He's been speaking for a few minutes now, maybe about 10 minutes, and he's been over there in Germany. In fact, this morning we had footage of him, a live video actually that we posted on our Facebook page of former President Obama and Angela Merkel speaking to a primarily Protestant crowd at a Protestant event in conjunction with the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. So now he's going going on to accept this, it's called the German Media Prize for 2016 award, and we've just been hearing his words here to this crowd just for a few minutes. So that's what you're watching if you're just joining us now. This is live, not taped, so you're watching it as it happens. And we'll listen to his words for a few more minutes until we jump out to another live event or taped event that we took in today. So you're watching Fox 5 Live. We're here in the Washington, D.C. digital newsroom bringing you this video. And we'll jump out for now and let you take a listen until this rolls out. Apologize also for some of the sound issues. I think it's the audio on his side is a little bit overmodulated, but we're doing the best we can here.
Individual pursuits are the only things that today matter. But we cannot afford complacency. These are times of great promise, but also great peril. Moreover, complacency is not the character of great nations. Today's threats are not, in some cases, as stark as they were in the last century, but the struggle for freedom and security and human dignity goes on. And we will have to summon the same capacity to adapt to new circumstances and to meet changing times while upholding timeless ideals. We still have to work together to replace fear with hope. I've taken great heart to see Europeans standing up recently for that vision in elections in Austria and the Netherlands and in France. And I was discussing this with Chancellor Merkel, and we agreed that perhaps people are more alert to the fact that we need to work on the things that we take for granted. They don't come naturally. It's like tending a garden. You have to get in there and get your hands dirty in order to make things grow. That's the spirit that we need at this defining moment. And I take an interest as a U.S. citizen in what happens on this continent because it has consequences for people around the globe. If a unified, peaceful, pluralistic, free market Europe begins to doubt itself, if it begins to question the very real gains that have been made over the last several decades, then we cannot expect the progress that is just now taking hold in many places around the world to continue. The United States and Europe work together as partners on the world stage. And we make mistakes, and there are times where we act hypocritically, but generally speaking, the values that we care about in promoting women's rights, in promoting education, in promoting justice, and anti-corruption measures, and transparency, and rule of law. Those are things that if we do not promote them, they don't get promoted. So we're going to have to work together, and we need a strong Europe to do that. If we do not, then we will hold the door open to those who argue that democracy doesn't work, who argue that restrictions on the press are necessary, who suggest that intolerance and tribalism and sectarianism and organizing ourselves along ethnic lines are the real answers to the challenges that we face. A view of the world that says, you have to lose in order for me to win. That spirit, too, exists around the world today. So more than ever, a strong, united Europe remains a necessity for all of us. And speaking as an American and as a friend of Europe, our security and our prosperity is bound up in yours. Our economies and our cultures and our peoples are integrated, and your success helps to uphold the democratic norms and rules that can maintain peace and prosperity around the world. Consider what we've done together in the past decade. We wrestled the global economy from the brink of a depression, put the world back on a path to recovery. We negotiated a comprehensive deal that cut off Iran's path to a nuclear bomb, part of a shared vision of a world without nuclear weapons. In Paris, we came together around the most ambitious agreement in history to fight climate change. We helped stop Ebola in West Africa, saved countless lives. We rallied the world around new sustainable development,
including goals to end extreme poverty. None of these achievements would have happened if the United States was acting alone, if it did not have a strong partnership with a strong and united Europe. When America and Europe lead with our hopes and not our fears, we do things that other nations and other parts of the world oftentimes will not do. So we cannot stand still. We have to keep moving and keep working, tending that garden. And we have to also acknowledge that there are some very real problems that exist in our world today, that the forces that sometimes make our people feel like they are powerless in the face of change, we have to address. We have to recognize the need to adapt to today's circumstances in the same way that the generation after World War II adapted to those circumstances. We shouldn't be paralyzed. We have to be inspired to move forward. We have always had the capacity to rebuild our social arrangements and remake our politics and adapt to new changes. So let me just suggest a few things that we have to pay attention to. First, we have to make sure that a high-tech economy works for everybody and not just a few. Capitalism and open markets have raised standards of living around the globe. But globalization and the relentless pace of automation have weakened the position of workers and weakened their ability to secure decent wages. All those efficiencies that have been gained have come at a price. And we know that economies don't work as well or grow as fast when just a few prosper at the expense of a broad middle class. We also have to recognize that economies that are increasingly unequal pose a political threat to the international order. When the top 1% amass a bigger share of wealth and income, it leaves everybody else feeling as if the game is fixed against them, and they mistrust their governments, believing that they only serve powerful interests. And it doesn't help when those who benefit the most from globalization use their political power to further undermine the position of workers. That's a recipe for more cynicism and more polarization and less trust in our societies, and that's what leads people to turn to alternatives that in the long run would do great damage, but channel frustration, anger, and resentment. Now, we can't unwind economic integration. We can't pull up the drawbridge or stuff technology back into a box. It's with us today. I know nobody's going to get rid of their cell phones. I have to take selfies all day long. We're too attached to them. But we are going to have to build new social arrangements to guarantee that all of our young people get the education they need in this high-tech economy. They give workers the power in the service sector to organize for better wages. We have to reform our tax codes so that those who reap the most from this new economy don't avoid their obligations to the countries that made their success possible. And we have to invest in our people, their skills, their education, their capacity to take an idea and turn it into a business. We have to modernize the social safety net so it's more flexible and empowers them to take control of their lives. And just as we work to alleviate inequality within our own countries, I believe that we have to still do more to close the gap between rich and poor nations. Making sure fragile states, whether in Africa or Asia or Latin America or the Middle East, don't collapse in the first place, helping emerging economies become markets for our goods, that's not just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do. Second, when it comes to the threat of climate change, something the governor, I know, takes great interest in, and we all should. We've shown that environmental sustainability and economic progress are not contradictory. They are complementary. In the United States, under my administration, we doubled production of renewable clean energy, and we saw record job creation at the same time. And working with other nations, we can now begin to lower carbon emissions enough to buy the next generation the time it needs to develop the next job-creating clean energy breakthroughs. If we don't, we will see more conflict, more refugees, more displacement, more danger. And we will not be able to isolate ourselves from the consequences. Third, we recognize that on the world stage, our biggest threat is not the great power contests of the past, but failed states and rogue states, terrorism, disaffection, too many young men without jobs, too many women who are suppressed, creating social tensions. So we have to sustain our alliances, we have to help other countries with their own development, and we have to combine our extraordinary military power with the power of our economy and our ideals and our diplomacy so that we can shrink the circles of despair and fear and build a landscape of hope. And that's time-consuming, and it's not always easy. But it's important and necessary, and only succeeds when the United States and Europe are working diplomatically together on the world stage. And fourth, we have to recognize that there needs to be a balance between our laws and our traditions, between an openness to immigrants and refugees who are fundamental to our values and our humanity, but also the need for order and some mechanisms to control how they come in. And my nation, perhaps more than any other, is defined by immigrants who make our economy and our culture more dynamic. We are a nation of immigrants. And in recent years, Germany has done perhaps more than any other nation to welcome refugees fleeing war and oppression. And you should be proud of that, because it is a reflection of who you are and who we are as open, liberal societies that value the dignity of every human being. But in maintaining an open heart, we also have to have a hard head in how we do it, and making sure that people feel that this is occurring in a way that maintains social cohesion and rule of law. And it can be done. And I believe that the Chancellor has worked diligently to make that happen. So for the sake of our economies and our values, we have to establish orderly processes to continue to be open to immigration and refugee flows, but do so in a way that the country feels is respectful of traditions. And finally, we have to recognize how technology has changed the way in which people receive information. I noticed that this is a media prize, so let me just say a few words to the media. I hope you don't mind. We are more technologically connected than we've ever been. That also makes it easier, ironically, to retreat into our own bubbles. We can find people on the internet who agree with us, no matter how crazy our ideas are. And we can make certain that our assumptions are never challenged. We can be very comfortable in our biases. It makes us so secure in our beliefs that we oftentimes accept only information not based on whether it is true or not, but based on whether it fits our opinions. We don't base our opinions on readily available facts or evidence or reason, but rather does it confirm how we already think. And democracies do not work if we are not operating at some level based on reason and facts and logic and not just passion. It doesn't work. The United States Constitution was based on the notion that you could have a free and open society and debate and create a marketplace of ideas because the founders had faith in people being able to evaluate those ideas. And a well-informed citizenry is critical for this extraordinary experiment to work. So we're going to have to find new ways to push back on propaganda, to cultivate independent journalism, to listen to those with whom we disagree, to teach our children to evaluate and analyze information effectively, to bridge our differences, to find common ground. And that's especially true of those of us who've had the privilege to serve our peoples. You know, when trust in our institutions is low, we should reduce the corrosive influence of money in our politics. We should insist on the principles of transparency and ethics in public service. And there is no doubt in America there's too much money in politics and there is too much entrenched partisanship. And the most important cure for that is more participation by citizens. The only way to solve some of the problems with our governments and the degree that they are not as responsive and nimble as they need to be in responding to these great challenges is to get more people involved. In Europe, I have to say that a well-intentioned Brussels can sometimes seem a little too isolated from the normal push and pull of national politics, and too often in capitals, decision makers forget that democracy needs to be driven by civic engagement from the bottom up and not just governance by experts from the top down. And so as leaders of democratic governments make the case for democracy abroad, we have to strive harder to set a good example here at home. If our citizens' expectations are not met, and if they believe they have no control, no voice in the decisions that are made by distant bureaucracies or governments, they will turn from democracy to populism, nationalism, but also potentially authoritarian movements. It has happened before. Democracy is hard, and progress does not move in a straight line, and the gains that we make are often fragile. But I continue to believe what Dr. King said, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I believe that the future does not favor the strong man. I believe deeply that the international order, based not just on military power or national affiliations, but on principles like rule of law and human rights and individual freedoms and compassion and empathy and responsibility and thinking about future generations, that's our only choice. That's what's brought us this far. That's what's promoted economic opportunity and prevented another world war. That's what's lifted millions out of poverty around the globe. So those of us who believe in democracy and believe in that vision need to speak out forcefully, because both the facts and history, I believe, are on our side. Our democracies are not without flaws. But the cure for what ails our democracies is greater involvement by our citizens, not less. And that's what I'll focus my work on for as long as I have, is to encourage active citizenship. The Obama Foundation will be based in Chicago, but we intend to have projects and programs and digital networks all over the world. And many of these will be in partnership with local organizations that are already doing great work in their communities. And our international programming will focus on creating space for a wide range of diverse participants to come together to solve local problems, but also to speak to the world's challenges. And most importantly, to train the next generation of citizens and leaders. Because I believe the future is on our side. Whenever I meet young people in Germany, or Africa, or China, or the United States, the idealism and hard work and willingness to take risks and soulfulness and goodness that I see in young people inspire me every single day. On my first visit to Germany as the next president, I've been reminded, even today, of some extraordinary young people that I met up in Berlin. And a number of people have mentioned that I don't look as young as I did the first time I came. But I still believe what I said then. If you want to see how to build a peaceful, prosperous, dynamic democracy, look at Germany. Many of you have been responsible for that success. Thank you for leading the way. Thank you for this extraordinary honor. And as you keep fighting for those values that we all hold dear, I look forward to continuing to be your partner. Vielen Dank. Thank you.
President Obama, or former President Obama, live in, switching where so you can see intern cam as well, live in Germany accepting that award. It was quite a long speech. Wasn't sure I expected it to be that long, but definitely his words and interesting to hear him as juxtaposed to President Trump, who we heard earlier at the NATO headquarters. I was going to replay President Trump's speech, but we decided to get in sort of late here for our afternoon show, so we're probably going to roll out the show shortly. But we will bring it back here to the studio. Take it on the sound. President Obama is done. We're back in studio. All right, guys. So that's it for our show today. It is Fox 5 Live. We're in Washington, D.C. Cam, any final words? Intern Cam. How was your day today?
It was good. Another interesting day.
Yeah.
We like to see the ceremony at the Arlington Cemetery that we were live at for 25 minutes or so.
That was cool.
And then, plenty of Obama on the show today as well, which you like to see, and the contrasting views between him and current President Trump. You know, get to see both sides there. So
Totally.
Pretty good show today.
Yeah, good show. Mix of events. We thought we might have Vice President Pence at an event, but it turns out we didn't get that feed. But we'll have a lot of variety, more stuff for you tomorrow. It's always different, always new. So check in with us here on YouTube. 11 a.m. into the afternoon we go. So I'm going to leave you guys with this awesome shot. Check this out. Our photographer got this from this morning at sunrise over in Alexandria. And it is, not that, it is, here it is. This is a ship. It is a replica ship called the El Galeon, an authentic replica of a 16th century Spanish ship. And it returns here in Alexandria. This is off the coast right there in Alexandria, Virginia. After a very successful return in October 2016, people now can tour the ship. It's sort of like a floating museum. It's been converted. And it's 500 tons, 160 feet long, with a 32-foot beam and 4 masts that hold 6 sails. They measure nearly 11,000 square feet. So it's a huge, gorgeous old 16th to 18th century replica ship off the coast, or right there in the water in Alexandria. We got this footage at sunrise. So we'll leave you with that. Roll out a little music here, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for Fox 5 Live.